everybody? We're going to get up and get started again here with the A-Town Special, a.k.a. Singer-Songwriter Night, with Eric, Real, and Levi Lamberjack.
This guy. Cheers. Oh, dude.
So with the interview portion of tonight and what we try to do every show here every month with it is I really want to hone in and ask a couple of good questions for these artists here and how we can really grow and flourish our scene and keep it growing. After COVID, I feel like ruined a lot of scenes in the community, and of course with our political climate, but we won't get into that as well. But we have to have an outlet and something to really grow and flourish in. And there's nothing more supporting your local community for the arts, for the music, to see things grow. Because these guys here, they started out as children, getting influenced in music, becoming the musicians they are today, and impacting their communities. So the first question I really want to ask you guys tonight, what I like to always start off with, is what influenced you and kind of motivates you to pursue your music? I'm not talking about famous people or like influences in the music, but family members, people part of your local community and your music communities as well.
Go ahead.
So my best friend Brock Green was the biggest. I wish he was here tonight because I'd give him one of these and he'd be like this, being all bashful. He gave me the knowledge of what I'm doing now by showing me a gentleman named John Prine. He's one of the greatest folk singers of all time and Americana singers and songwriters. And it's weird how the rabbit hole goes, but then I found Tony Rice of the Bluegrass Album Band and one of the greatest flat pickers of all time. And I kind of was like, one day, it was in 2012, I was like, I'm going to go learn how to play bluegrass guitar. So because of Brock, I'm a very big, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I would have found it, but later on. But also my big brother, as anyone is, who has a big brother, taught me. I was a really big metalhead, believe it or not. I love Iron Maiden. I grew up on all these metal bands. And then my best friend and my brother was like, oh, you should check out Tenacious D. And I got to give Tenacious D their credit. Like Kyle Gass is one of my biggest heroes. And I'm going to be real. I would not be doing what I'm doing without Kyle Gass playing the acoustic. I'm like, you can literally take an acoustic guitar anywhere and play it. And you don't have to have amplification. Because I wanted to get into like getting a flying V, going all ham and potatoes. But then I was like, you can do that on an acoustic guitar. And now and when I got to meet Kyle Gass, I got to tell him that was pretty cool. But as far as that, it's my big brother, my best friend Brock, and my mom. My mom bought me my first acoustic guitar, so I love you, Mom. She did it. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without her, and of course my wife. She left earlier, but my daughter was being a havoc. But my wife also, I met her at the exact same time I started playing music. So without that push from her being like, hey, this is a goal. This is something you have to work towards. It's not just easily given. And it's full circle now because I'm teaching music, which is, go figure, I've been playing for almost 12 years now, and it's unbelievable. So it's my big brother, my best friend Brock, my parents, and of course my wife. So they're my biggest influences.
It's always great to hear. What about you, Levi?
Yeah, so like growing up, I started singing in the Catholic Church when I was in about second grade, and I just realized that as I was going through school, I always had somebody who sort of poured into me as like a singer specifically. I was singing, I called myself an alto when I was in the second grade, and I was singing in the church choir, and a guy by the name of Don Worley, I don't know if anyone knows who that is in here, he was incredibly important in my upbringing and my singing, and he would just encourage me and say, you could do this if you wanted to, And then I got into high school, and it was Mr. Stephen Fleck who poured into me in that way. And also one of the guys that really poured into me, I'm looking at him, right? Turn around, Mr. Greg James.
Woo! Come on, give Greg a round of applause.
This guy, let me tell you something. Greg, I said this earlier, but you ran sound for my first show ever. It was at the Burdock House in 2016. I remember it was an open mic, and I was with, and also shout out to Aiden Sturgeon and Caleb Davis. They played here a couple months ago, and they were also really big into getting my start in the music scene here in Anderson. And I remember I just played like an Audio Slave cover and a Pearl Jam cover. I was a metalhead too. They're not really metal.
We know our own.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah, I recognize. Game recognizes game. So and just like the way that they just encouraged me, and just like every house show that I played, everyone was so intently listening, and just they weren't complimenting me on how good I was, but they were complimenting me on how good the content was. Like the song, the content of the song, like the lyrics, the instrumentation. And that was really encouraging to me. And it's something that I really value today is when someone comes up to me and they're like, I really love I really love that bridge in your song that it just speaks so well to something I'm going through. Or even when they give me like constructive criticism or deconstructive criticism, like, man, your bridge freaking sucks. Like, I take that and I like that because it helps me grow as a musician. And I think all the men in my life who really poured into that, like Greg and Steve and Don, and even in college, it was more on the technical side because I run sound full time. So on the technical side, his name's Stacy Bone. He passed away this past November. He gave it to you straight, but but when you were doing well, he really told you, and when you were doing horrible, he also really told you. But that's what I needed, being formed, and yeah, those are all my influences. They're all men in my life who kind of gave me what I lacked growing up. So
I feel like it's always nice when like both of you guys had influence that were family, but also like community like figures. I feel like the same. I was telling Greg, or maybe I wasn't telling Greg this, but I just think about it a lot. How he influenced basically the creation of the nightly special when I ran a radio show for a couple of years at Ball State when I was going to school there, and it was all influenced on the local scene, signing artists. Like I would go to shows, listen to all their music to make sure it's era appropriate, or edit it myself and play all this stuff. So I went through hundreds and hundreds of bands, people from Romania, California, majority Indiana. And getting into the scene, I knew Parker Pickett and the Pickett brothers, Palmer and everybody, and really grew up with the dictionary scene, Saba, Banks, Jim Jones Jr., like earlier acts, and Greg would always be there running sound.
Yeah.
And seeing that community and someone that's just been in the community in Anderson for years and just really still making an impact and wanting stuff to grow. And one of the things I will always remember when we first started doing this singer-songwriter night here at the A-Town Center, me and Jess Jones and Greg, when we got a beer afterwards, and we were talking stuff here at Creatures, and we're sitting down, and Greg was saying, a lot of people in the community try to do stuff for the older generations, doing performances and things for the older generation to come out and stuff at the Paramount. When he's like, you guys sitting right here are our future, and we need to invest into the future. And I feel like, we got to pass stuff generationally, whether it be forward or backward. It's nice to have stuff trickle down in that way. With that being said, you guys touch on a little bit with this next question is, what impact do you guys want your music and performances to have on the local scene in the DIY community? I know, Eric, you've kind of reached out, and I want to touch on it more about the Fortville Garage. You're one of the founders for that music venue, right? Or for with the music classes?
I'm one of the head instructors. Yeah.
Okay.
Zach and Krista Scholar, they're the owners who run that place. But yeah, it's a Fortville Music Garage. I was there. I was there last year, and then we had that fire. But now we reopened, and we're strong and steady as we've ever been.
That's great.
But that's it's a lot about community. It really is, and kind of growing in that aspect and trying to keep. Me personally, I'm trying to keep bluegrass alive. That's one of my biggest things. As I was telling them earlier, at the FOP they had over on Mound State Road. I'm from Noblesville, so I'm not really. My wife's from LaPel, so I'm getting used to Anderson still. But like Mounds Road, they used to have this bluegrass jam. I got this secret invite, and that was like, hey man, at the end of the jam, like, hey, you should come to this jam. We'd really like you to. And I was like, all right, like. And so do I do anything? They're like, no, just show up. I'm like, all right. So I drove out in the middle of the country, middle of nowhere. This was probably 7-8 years ago, more at this point. And it was called the FOP Just Jam. It was now it's the Alexandria Jam. It's now become the Alexandria Jam, which is every second Thursday and fourth Thursday of the month. And it's just it's a bunch of old time musicians getting together and kind of learning that legacy. And I would sit there as quiet as I could, walking in with my guitar case covered in stickers and long hair, and try to be, just trying to observe and absorb. Because there was another jam in Sheridan. I was going to 4 jams a month until COVID hit. And I was rotating, because that's how we learn. You have to learn these tunes, these old time, like what he was talking about, public domain and traditional tunes. the best way to learn them is through these what we call jams, and I call them ham jams because they're awesome. They get really, and we become a family. It's a communal aspect. We know each other's name. We ask how our families and their dogs are doing, and that's what I guess that's the impact, I think, is the heritage, keeping it alive. And, bluegrass just turned 100 years old this year. They documented it as Bill Monroe getting his mandolin and making it what it is. So it's been over 100 years now bluegrass is alive, and I'm trying to keep that heritage going.
I think,
and the legacy. I call it a legacy more than a heritage, because there's so many players out there doing new grass and jam grass and space grass and this grass and this grass. I'm just trying to keep the traditional stuff going, and with a little bit of making it my own, because that's what Bill Monroe wanted. He wanted us to make our own style of grass, and that's what I'm trying to do.
The revival of bluegrass I find super interesting.
Yeah.
And what I think part of it is with bluegrass taking off more than it's ever been, especially with artists like Billy Strings and local artists kind of growing up more, is when people normally think bluegrass, a lot of people think a lot of country twangy people that would listen to it. But now bluegrass has evolved. It's more hippie jam bandy than it's ever been, and get that following and stuff. Same with folk music and things, and that kind of mentality with it kind of goes with it. And it's interesting to see how some of the songs get longer and jammier. I remember early bluegrass that I'd listen to was usually just a couple of minutes, something simple, sweet and to the point. My first introduction to bluegrass was when the flea market over on Pitt by Moran's would do Friday nights. My grandmother would take me when I was a little kid, and there'd be people playing just the old domain songs,
that's
bluegrass, yodeling and stuff.
That's the essence.
The true, And for me,
no amplification.
It wasn't bad.
Just acoustic room and vocals.
I liked it. But then the progression
was
and stuff of it, and more the storytelling that people grew with and things, I think is super cool. And bluegrass, with the ham jams, with the jam sessions, it's becoming more of a communal thing than I feel like it's ever been, because more people are hearing about it.
Yeah.
I think part of it too is because people wanting more of that soulful original sound, because country music is now a stadium fuller pop rock and blend of rap a little bit now too, and a little bit of southern fried rock.
Yeah.
And then now alt country artists like the Highwaywomen supergroup, Chris Stapleton,
totally.
they're kind of
That's
making
our
Mickey Lane.
outlaws,
They're making that newer kind of sound. And then you got artists like yourself and you guys that are coming in, writing stuff listening to your guys' lyrics tonight. And your voices are both unique in so many different ways, and just the pathos and ethos you command in your vocals and your stage presence really represents the energy and vibe you're wanting to give off with your guys' genres that you're influenced and inspired by. And it's really cool to see that. I mean, I let stuff go on an extra 15, 20 minutes because everyone in the room, when you listen, it's just really cool. And these nights are great because it's such a listening and welcoming room. I feel like every show we've done, where the group is small or big, people have been really intrigued by what we have to going on and what we have to say.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And when Jess Jones, check out Jess Jones, by the
For
way.
real.
He's a dear friend of mine. He introduced me to this event, and I've said enough.
Yeah.
I can't thank you.
Wave your hand, buddy.
And Levi as well. This guy is an unbelievable musician. I'm floored over here, so it's an honor, actually.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's we are a community that grows together.
Yeah,
in a way.
absolutely. And
get to know each other in a way.
We met through Belgian Horse. I reached out for booking you guys for Bluegrass.
That was a great show.
Yeah,
we had
was.
a great time, and the sound was perfect. Belgian Horse Winery it was literally one of my favorite venues. Because it sounded so good to play. That it really was. It was one of the greatest stages I've played on. For sure.
Well, I
awesome.
appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say you touched on how do we keep people coming to these venues?
The impact and stuff. How do we bring it? Yep.
And I think that's exactly kind of what you touched on, is just creating a welcoming environment for young people to come in. When I talk about the Burdock House, you know how scared I was to go with this new guy that I had just met because I was doing theater at main stage.
Yeah.
And just he's like, hey, you want to do an open mic with me? And I'm like, well, I've never done an open mic. And then it's at somebody's house. I mean, if that doesn't scream like you're gonna get murdered, I don't know what does. But and then I walked in, and I saw people like Palmer and Parker were there. Justin W.D. Benjamin was there. Just people like that who really just made me feel like I belonged. And I think that's exactly what A-Town Center is doing, and that's what the scene is doing here in Anderson. And I think, like you said, COVID really put a stint in that. But
I hate to bring it up, but
yeah, right. But
it did. It really nailed us.
And I
But
think
the roots are getting in motion now.
Yeah.
Can you, like, it's kind of starting to really kind of come back, and groups are getting going again and things. And I feel like house venues are the biggest thing to really impact our youth, and then also having events here, like especially what A-Town Center does with doing like art nights for kids, or doing pottery, or doing things to get young children and like generations involved, because you know really got to have something for everyone.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something really cool that's offers here.
And last night, or like a couple months ago, we did an open mic here. You remember where we had some kids from Slick upstairs, like come down and play what they've been learning and things like that. If y'all don't know, like Slick Music Studios right upstairs. I recorded my first album there in 2019.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right upstairs.
That's awesome.
And just like the way that the music scene really comes together in Anderson, and they pour into each other, different venues. Like I think part of it too is like venues need to come together. Like venues need to be sharing their musicians and really promoting other venues, and I think that is the sort of thing that brings a community and a city together.
This ties in exactly what I wanted to kind of segue everything into, is how we can, as a musical community, progress the arts and have artists and musicians flourish in Anderson, Fortville, Noblesville area. And I think that's a really big key, but it's going to be a hard road to get to, because when it comes to local businesses and places, sometimes not every business person likes to play ball. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. When I was really big in the Muncie music scene, going to college and stuff at Ball State, and knowing a lot of business owners, running an open mic at the Pickle Peach and stuff, your biggest thing in the community is trying to get other businesses to play ball. But when you get it, and what I really love seeing going on in Muncie, and what I really want to see happen in Anderson, is Muncie does a Fired Up festival where they have hot air balloon rides and take off in different unique balloons. Now, these past 2 years they've done it. They never could fly the balloons, but they only could, people could ignite them and kind of fill them up because the weather was too bad. But that day, not only at local bars in the area they're doing music, but also different stages they have throughout, have almost all Muncie local bands playing these shows.
That's
and
awesome.
through the day, which is super cool. They use them. They have them play at the Cannon Center, like the outdoor kind of amphitheater, kind of like their version of what the Dickman Center and stuff is. And I really think trying to get local musicians and stuff on that stage, doing stuff, and then people like, hey, go hop at these businesses. Maybe another artist and stuff will be playing there, and have it all be locally based within the community, within 30 minutes or so from the community, like kind of really close knit. And I think that's something that like I really want to try to progress and do for our community, and try to have that kind of up and coming for that, because people don't realize how many talented individuals we have, or also how many more talented individuals we can get, giving them access to someone look like that guy can do it, I can do it, or like I like that style, I want to learn how to do that, and just really empower the music scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that last question I said with them, what we touched on, do you guys have any more to add to that one?
I think with the whole communal aspect of what we were talking about, like growing is going to shows.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sucks sometimes that, I know I work 3 jobs and do gigging on the side, it is part of a job. It's a lifestyle, but it's because I'm trying to, like I said, keep this fire going. I want to, and with my group that we, I don't do a lot of solo stuff anymore. We do a lot of more band stuff just because I like mandolins a whole lot and I like basses a whole lot. And, but as we grow as a community, we all need hands to hold. We all have to be able to go to shows, or, if you can, check out local venues like what you're talking about. Like there's a place up in Kokomo called the Coterie I go to. I follow a group called the Greenwood Ride. They're this bluegrass group out of Nashville, and they're like they're good friends with us now. Like, those are the venues to go to. And, I love going to Deer Creek because it'll always be Deer Creek. But I go to Deer Creek. I love going to Deer Creek and the Hi-Fi and all these great venues. But going to these smaller events and shows and helping each other out. And, I give out, I'll wear my stickers proudly of all my local groups that, I just met this group a couple weeks ago called the Cold Hearts. They're out of Indianapolis.
Yes. Oh, they're at the winery. Yes.
They're a honky tonk band, and
Yes.
they're one of the greatest groups out right now, the Cold Hearts. And I got to hang out and talk with them, and obviously they're normal people, but it's just so neat to see there's real talent here in our back door. Like, you don't have to go to Nashville, Tennessee to see shows. There's people in Anderson and near Chicago and in southern Indiana, and even at the Hi-Fi in Indianapolis, that you can buy a ticket for $20 and go see a show, or even some shows even cheaper. But it's like I look at it more than the money too. Sometimes it's worth the money. It's like to experience art live, to see it live is different than hearing it, in my opinion.
Intimacy and just connection, I feel like, when you do go to local shows.
Totally.
And sometimes,
especially,
for
yes.
me, I can group, when I think of shows, I group everything together. And I got some local shows and house shows I've put on through the years that rank up there with shows I've seen live. But at the same time, I was talking this today with my partner, and she was telling me how, for her, it's like different because like they're two different vibes. And it is. Like shows, house shows, smaller venue, it's a more intimacy. To me, there's more of a connection. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you see bigger performances, stuff at like Egyptian Room, Conseco, Deer Creek, Lucas Oil's doing shows now.
Yeah. Especially
it's like
those.
It's more just like seeing a movie and getting like an entertainment aspect, and sometimes it's hard to get a real connection. Now, if it's a band you've known for decades and seen hundreds of times, you've grown with them, like that's cool, and I respect and agree with that. But sometimes the intimacy of a venue with 15 to 20 people truly and intently listening, or sometimes up to 60 or 70, it's just resonates more, and you just go home sometimes just feeling just
it's more real.
Yeah, it's just like I connected with almost everyone in this room. When you play to a room of thousands and thousands of people, it's like sometimes it's jarring. It's two different animals.
Yeah. I'm more vibing with the person next to me. Like when I went and saw Dead and Company for their last tour.
Oh yeah.
And it was awesome. It was unbelievable. And I vibed more with the people next to me than I did. It was a great experience, obviously. But or seeing a show at the Egyptian Room. There are times you're vibing with the person next to you rather than the actual. That's why I like going to smaller events. Like and we used to go. I like we talk about house shows. I saw this band called the Future Islands. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They're awesome. They're huge now, but I saw them at a house show, and that changed everything. It made me an instant fan overnight, and like I think that is very important. These more intimate, I guess, interference or encounters, it really makes a big
growing.
difference.
Just a state away from us, Michigan, Kalamazoo, their house show scene. I got friends that live there and that play there, and they said it's literally the hi-fi in a house.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see grow in Anderson. That's what I see with the A-Town Center. That's what I see with the Dickman Center, but focusing more on that organic chemistry with the community. The Shed, absolutely. And that's coming up on October 20th. We're going to nice little acoustic show and some full bands playing that as well. But guys, this will conclude our interview portion tonight, this evening. I want to give these guys a couple more tunes for them to play out the night. Again, this has been the Singer-Songwriter Night, a.k.a. the A-Town Special, where you form a unity to jumpstart a better community. And as always, make your 1% count. This show has been sponsored by Jeff Ehrlich of the Piano Service and tune-ups that you can get for him. Make sure if you want to take a picture of this sign tonight, take a picture to have his number if getting serviced.
Got to stay in tune.
Got to stay in tune. Absolutely. So give one more big of applause for Levi Lamberjack, Eric Reel. They're going to play out the night. Again, thanks for everyone coming out for this show.